You know the story, right? China, 5,000 years of glorious, continuous history. The ancient civilization that's now roaring back with a full-blown economic miracle. It's a really powerful narrative. But what if it's not quite right? Well, way back in the 19th century, the philosopher Hegel, he had a much, much harsher take. He didn't see some grand upward evolution. He saw an endless, repeating loop, a brutal cycle of rise and fall, over and over again. So in this explainer, we're going to take a look at that. We're going to use a modern Nobel Prize-winning economic framework to diagnose China's past, its present, and even its future. We'll find out if the country is really breaking new ground or if it's just trapped in a loop that's been spinning for 2,000 years. Okay, let's dive right in. To really get what's happening now, we've got to go back. We need to re-examine the very nature of Chinese history because it's probably not the straight-line story you think it is. So historians have this concept they call the dynastic cycle. And the basic idea is that for millennia, China didn't really progress. Instead, it was stuck in something like a giant washing machine cycle of creation and destruction, where the core political system, it never actually changed. And here's how that relentless loop worked. It starts with a new ruler uniting the country, bringing order, but over time, corruption starts to rot the system from the inside out. That leads to peasant revolts, chaos, unimaginable bloodshed. And then, out of all that chaos, a new strong man emerges to found a brand new dynasty. And the whole cycle just starts all over again. And this, right here, is the key. The script never changed, only the actors did. Think about it. From the very first Qin emperor all the way to the last Qing emperor, the fundamental political software, absolute rule, total population control, zero checks and balances, it was identical. Same play, just different people in different costumes. So you might be wondering, okay, interesting history, but what's that got to do with China's modern economy? Well, it turns out everything. To connect the dots, we're going to turn to a Nobel Prize-winning framework. This is where history meets hard economics. So a couple of economists, Darren Acemoglu and James Robinson, won a Nobel for this theory. They basically argue that nations succeed or fail because of their institutions. Extractive systems, like that old dynastic cycle, are designed to funnel wealth and power to a tiny elite. But inclusive systems, they do the opposite. They spread power and opportunity, they protect property, and they unleash innovation. One path leads to stagnation, the other to real long-term prosperity. Okay, so once you have this framework, you can use it like a diagnostic tool. And you start to see that Asia's two giants, China and India, despite their rivalry, are kind of like two sides of the same sick coin. And this table just lays it out so clearly. China is what's called a despotic leviathan. The state is just all-powerful. This creates an organized poverty, where people are basically cogs in a super efficient but totally stifling machine. It's like a giant with incredible strength but no ability to think creatively. India, on the other hand, is an absent leviathan. The state is too weak to actually enforce the rules, so you get chaotic poverty. There's freedom, sure, but it's undermined by corruption and disorder. Kind of like a giant whose brain can't get clear signals to its arms and legs. They're both trapped, just in different ways. There's a really sharp psychological insight here. When people in one system are dealing with their own problems, whether it's chaos or repression, mocking the other system becomes a sort of social anesthetic. It's a way to feel a little bit better about your own situation without having to face the deep flaws right in front of you. So we get to the absolute crux of the issue. China's extractive system, even with all its amazing ability to build things, has a fatal flaw. It's fundamentally toxic to the one thing you absolutely need for a modern, advanced economy: real, game-changing innovation. And this just begs a massive question. China is pouring billions and billions of dollars into science and tech. It has more engineers than anywhere else on Earth. So, why has all of that effort produced almost zero foundational scientific breakthroughs that get recognized with a Nobel Prize? The answer is, it's just staggering. That's it, just one single scientist working in mainland China has ever won a Nobel in a natural science. Now, this isn't about the people, it's a diagnosis of the system. The seeds of genius are there for sure, but the soil they're planted in is toxic. So why is the soil so toxic? Well, a few big reasons. First, real innovation is creative destruction. It blows up old industries and power structures, and the party is terrified of that. Second, the system demands quick, measurable results, which kills the kind of long-term, risky research that leads to breakthroughs. Third, you just can't have scientific freedom without information freedom. And finally, when political connections matter more than your actual ideas, the best ideas, they just don't win.
And, the one exception, Tu Yu, her story actually proves the point perfectly. In China, she was called the three-nose scientist because she had no doctorate, no overseas study, and wasn't a member of the elite science academies. She was a total outsider in her own country, ignored by the establishment, right up until the Nobel Committee in Sweden recognized her work. It literally took foreigners to tell China who its greatest living scientist was.
But here's the thing. Right across the street, there's a living, breathing experiment that proves a completely different path is possible for a Chinese-speaking society. A society that actually broke that dynastic loop. And the contrast when you put them side by side is just night and day. China's state-led model is great at copying and scaling, going from 1 to n, but Taiwan's private-led model excels at original creation, going from 0 to 1, like creating a company like TSMC. China's political system is like a brittle pressure cooker, while Taiwan's is a flexible democracy with safety valves. And that fosters a high-trust society in Taiwan versus a low-trust atomized one in China. And this is exactly why Taiwan is such a profound threat to the Communist Party. It's not about the military, it's about the power of its example. Taiwan proves every single day that a free, democratic, and prosperous Chinese society isn't just possible, it's real. It completely shatters the CCP's core argument that Chinese people are somehow not suited for democracy.
So that brings us to one last, really powerful metaphor that I think perfectly captures the difference between these two systems, the difference between a fragile strength and true resilience.
An autocracy looks incredible, right? It's powerful, it's efficient, it sails so smoothly in calm seas. But because it has no real feedback loops, no way to change course, its first encounter with a real crisis is often its last. A democracy, on the other hand, is messy. It's loud, it feels inefficient, and your feet are always wet. But all that constant bickering and motion is exactly what allows it to adapt, to survive, and to just keep on floating. So the real point is this. We've all been kind of dazzled by the sheer speed of the authoritarian model. But in the long marathon of history, what really matters isn't the short-term sprint, it's long-term sustainability. It's the ability to self-correct. It's all about who can actually finish the race. And that leaves us with one final question to think about. As we watch this competition between these different models play out, are we maybe putting too much weight on superficial strength and speed? Are we underestimating the deep, messy, and maybe even ugly power of systems that can bend without ever breaking? What does strength really mean in the 21st century?